come to the front and actually have their concerns heard. In terms of
I want to take an example from a federal point of view, which is there's a term called CALD, C.A.L.D,
Yeah.
culturally and linguistically diverse, and public policy happens within that. So the definition of CALD is anybody who doesn't speak English as a first language, and which could be somebody from Eastern European background or South American background and Middle Eastern background or Southeast Asian or South Asian. So how can you club this heterogeneous group into one and give them a label called CALD and create public policy and then drive public policy in that direction and say, oh, well, we'll throw some money in the budget in this direction and then things will work.
So your question is
how does a heterogeneous group
yeah.
can be represented by a single term? How can you mix all of them together? Let's mix all of this together.
That's a $1 million question, isn't it? How do we do that? And yes, it's got its complexities because even within each, subgroup like South Americans or like Southeast Asians, there are other groups,
yes.
subgroups. And so how do you make sure that you encapsulate all? And then we're not even looking at it from a faith-based lens, which each faith group would have their own different ways of doing things. So I don't have a clear-cut answer to that. But what I can say is more effort needs to be done in the way the government engages and not just creates an echo chamber around them to hear from like-minded individuals, even if they do represent one of those subgroups, but expanding that and ensuring that, your everyday Australian who may represent a particular community group is able to have that contact or have their voices heard. And I think that definitely would happen from the way Senate inquiries are done. It's just that sometimes they're rushed. And we know that consultation periods can be minimised based on the government's agenda. It can really, prevent people from being able to come to the front and actually have their concerns heard. In terms of the labelling of culturally and linguistically diverse people, what if somebody identifies as culturally and linguistically diverse, but English is their first language, because they're born and raised here? It is a very restrictive labeling.
Limiting.
And very limiting, because at the end of the day, it boxes you, right? And it's like as if this CALD community has no other issues. It's just to do with the fact that they look different. That's not the only thing that, there are professionals out there who may identify as CALD, but passionate about ending the AUKUS deal. That's a defence policy, something completely different. You can't limit them by boxing them into one and saying, oh, we've splashed some money, so they'll just be quiet and they'll just do their own little programs to, placate them and hope that they'll vote for you. It can't be a vote-grabbing exercise. There needs to be proper structures in place. We've got all these ministries, but what is a ministry dedicated to ensuring that people from all walks of life, their voices are heard from, different fields? Yes, I'm not saying we should have a ministry for that, but just labeling them as CALD and shoving them to the side isn't going to work.